there's a couple problems. Let's talk first of all about some of the timeline problems. Many times, even if there's not a criminal prosecution, a lot of times people read in the paper that kind of seriatim complaints are being filed. And they're reading it in the paper because some complainant is saying I filed it or something like that. You got to realize that we try and, number one, we try and wait and get all these together so that if we're going to file formal charges, we don't do it 5 or 6 times and have 5 or 6 trials, which would be a tremendous waste of resources and tremendously expensive. But when we get an allegation, and we get lots of allegations, okay, of criminal activity, right? It's not just an allegation. But when we start our investigation, and our investigation reveals that there may be criminal activity, okay, the statute, 17-5-304, gives us the responsibility to report that to the either the local DA or the Attorney General. And in fact, we can ask for TBI investigative assistance in a case, even if there's not criminal involvement, but especially when there is criminal involvement. Some of the problems where you have there's a couple things you've got to think about. If you have a criminal, if you undertake to notify the TBI or the AG that you've gotten proof sufficient that they need to investigate to see if there's a possible criminal violation, okay? There's a couple of very substantial reasons why once they undertake that investigation, all right, that you back off your civil board investigation. Number one is the Garrity problem. And Garrity, let me just give you real simply what Garrity says. Garrity says that if and this is, Garrity applies to police officers, but it also applies to judges for a reason I'm going to tell you. Garrity basically says that if an administrative procedure requires an officer to give IA, Internal Affairs, or any other investigative board, a statement when asked, okay, and then later a criminal, and they give that such a statement, all right, because they're required to. Later
they have
on,
to, or they'll be fired.
They'll be fired, okay? If they're required to give that statement, all right, and they are later prosecuted, there is a burden of